Alright, what's up guys? We're back here with another movie review, and um, about an hour and 40 minutes ago, I sat down to watch Pet Cemetery 2 for actually the first time. I had never seen this movie. This was there's three Pet Cemetery movies. There's one from 1983, which is the original. Then there's a sequel in 1991, loosely a sequel. And then there's a remake in 2019. This was the only one that I didn't watch, and I was actually kind of surprised. This movie is got a horrible score on all critic sites, but I highly enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it's possibly the best rendition of a Pet Cemetery story we will ever get. I I honestly think that about this movie. I really liked it. It had young John Connor from Terminator 2 in it, which just made it all better. And it also had Clancy Brown in it, which played that douchebag drill sergeant from one of my favorite war movies of all time, Starship Troopers. I was just like enthralled by the opening scene because these two actors are in this movie. And guess what? He plays a fucking sheriff in this. Clancy Brown is the guy that his name is Clancy Brown, the guy that plays the sheriff from the drill sergeant from Starship Troopers. And Edward Furlong is the guy from the kid from Terminator 2. He's also in another movie that I really enjoy called American History X. But Jesus, this movie is really good. I really enjoyed this movie. Now, there are parts of it that don't really make sense, but it's kind of artsy in a form. It's not really supposed to be a direct sequel to the original. It has some of the parts from the original to hold up and continue the story, but it doesn't really leave much from the original. The story is that after the whole Creed incident, the daughter was the only one left, and she went crazy and ended up hacking up the grandparents, and then she went to an insane asylum for the rest of her life, and that's pretty much all that's left, except for the Indian burial ground is still there. I really enjoy this movie because it also has this, it's got some really good songs. It's got this like gothic, 90s goth alternative vibe to it, the soundtrack of it. I really, really enjoyed this movie, and I have no idea why it has such a low score. This was a really, really fun watch. I was not bored 1 minute of this. It was an hour and 40 minutes long. This is a really fucking good movie, and I still don't get why. I didn't really like, I never did really like the first Pet Cemetery movie, and I didn't even like the remake. I thought the remake was worse than the original. The remake was terrible. And I didn't think anything could get worse than the original. This movie is so much better than the original, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people will be like, oh, you don't have a good taste in movies. Well, I'm not here giving this movie review to state my opinion like everyone else's opinion. I'm here to give my honest opinion and say, I don't agree with everyone else. I think this is a legitimately good movie. I loved this movie. It's just, there's something about it. I just really liked it. Every scene clicked for me. I'm just like, wow. The ending was kind of fell flat, but that was the only problem that I have with it. The ending was the last about 10 minutes of the movie were kind of flat, but other than that, the movie held up strong the whole time for me. It had really good makeup effects on some of the kills. I really, all the way from the soundtrack to the actors to the makeup effects to the story even, I really liked it. And there's a different take on this movie, and I think that's why I like it so much. There's a lot of view on human choices and regret through loss, unlike the original. The original didn't really capture that much for me. It's just like they killed off the kid, and then he kept putting people in the pet cemetery, and it's just like, ugh. And that's why I hated the remake so much, because now that I see it, the remake combined ideas from the original and the sequel to it. This was the best out of the series, I think. Really good movie. And that's usually not the way with horror movie sequels. It doesn't really top the original. This one did, in my opinion. So, going into the story, Pet Cemetery. So the movie starts off with Edward Furlong from Terminator 2. He's the kid, the main kid, but I'm just gonna call him Edward. So Edward and his dad are moving into this new town. I guess his dad's like the movie starts off with Edward. He's at like this movie set, and apparently his mom is like a really famous actress. And it starts off interesting. I was very confused from the first start. I'm like, wow, this is already different from the original. Holy shit. It really is different from the original. And I feel like that's why people are like, oh, they differed from the original like so much. And it's stupid. I recommend going into this movie with an open mind. Forget Pet Cemetery and think of it as its own thing. And it really is its own thing. Other than the small backstory, in the Indian burial ground, it's its own movie. It really is. And I feel like people beat on it too much. This is a really good movie. So, Edward's mother is like a famous actor or whatever. And we're going to call the sheriff, the Clancy Brown. We're going to call Clancy Brown's character Clancy. And he's actually the sheriff of the town. But basically the movie starts off, Edward and his mother are at this movie set. And she's acting in this movie. And something goes terribly wrong. And the electricity on the set malfunctions and electrocutes his mother to death. So next thing we know, Edward is talking to his dad, and apparently his dad had divorced his mother a couple years prior. So they're having relationship issues. And Edward goes to live with his dad. And his dad is moving in this new town because the mother's dead now. They need to move. I guess they're moving somewhere else. And so they move into this new town, and I guess the dad's like this vet. So he buys this vet office. It has like a kennel in it, and like 2 operating rooms, and then a front reception area. And then it's also got this big area where it's like recovery bay or whatever. It's a pretty big building, but he bought this whole building and he works there now. And we get to meet characters such as the sheriff, which is Clancy's character. And he's we also get to meet his son. His son's a chubby fat kid in this movie. The reason I say chubby fat kid is because there's actually a small story detail to him being fat in this, and I'll get to that later. But oh shit, okay. We also get to meet his kid and his kid's dog, which was what was the kid's dog's name? Howie? Wowsy. I can't remember. It was like Howie or Wowsy or something like that. I forget what it was. But Howitzer. Was it Howitzer? I don't know. Anyway, this dog's like this big, like fucking, I don't know what breed it is. I don't care. I'm not a dog expert. If you want a dog expert, talk to my girlfriend. She volunteers at animal shelters. Oh, god damn it. Okay. So apparently the dog got like bit by a fucking rabbit or something. And the sheriff takes the dog into the office, and Edward's helping his dad set up this office or whatever. Then once that's over, they get home, and you soon find out that Clancy's character does not like his kid. It's a real big douchebag to him. And he's very sexually abusive to his wife. So he's quite a character. But Clancy has always played like... He's been in a lot of movies, and honestly, I'm not really surprised that he took a role like this. Because it's not the first time that he's played a douchebag person in a movie. And let's just talk about fucking Edward's character. I honestly don't know which role I would pick as my favorite from him. He's got a lot of really good roles. I mean, we're looking at fucking John Connor, young John Connor from Terminator 2. He fucking killed that role. I mean, I love Terminator 2. He fucking killed that role. He killed this role. He pretty much played the same kid that he played in Terminator in this, and I loved it. He was just kind of like this kid that doesn't give a shit, and I loved it. And then, not to mention, he fucking played the younger brother in fucking American History X, which is like one of the best movies I've ever seen. Not to mention, he got one of the saddest So there has only been 7 occasions in 7 different movies where I actually shed a tear. And one of them was American History X. And those of you who have seen that movie know exactly what I'm talking about. Edward's death in that movie. Holy shit. That got me so hard. That was some depressing ass shit because I didn't see it coming. I'm not going to say how it happens, but just know, well, you're watching a movie review, so obviously there's going to be some spoilers. Whatever. But I honestly don't know which role of his to pick out, which is my favorite, because he's got a lot of really good roles. I mean, fuck. And he's supposed to be in the new Terminator movie, so I'm like, holy shit. And I am so excited for Terminator 6 because they're getting rid of Rise of the bullshit. They're getting rid of Salvation bullshit. And then they're also getting rid of Terminator Genesis bullshit. They're getting rid of all 3 of those movies and starting off from Terminator 2. And I'm so fucking excited. Arnold Schwarzenegger's returning. Edward Furlong's returning. And also the original actress of Sarah Connor is returning. Which is... I'm so pumped for it. Okay. Pet Cemetery 2. So, we meet these characters, and we also get to the next day. I guess he's going to school. Well, let's go a little bit back a little bit. So, when the dad and Edward get home, dad and his son get home, they're packing into this new house they bought, and apparently this house has like a housekeeper. So the housekeeper shows up, and she's like this young, pretty woman about the dad's age. And you can tell that she likes, she was a big fan of the mother. And Edward's character is getting all pissy because she's this hot girl, and the dad's looking like he likes her. And she starts touching the boxes and looking at the stuff that his mother owed. He's like, don't touch it. He just gets all pissy with it because his mother just died. And it's completely understandable. But, so then we skip the next day at school, and we get to meet the bully character of the movie. Now, there's a couple no-name bullies that we don't really get to see throughout the movie, but the main one we want to talk about is he's this kid with blonde hair, and he looks like a young version of God damn it, what was that guy's name? He was in Flatliners. He was also in Lost Boys. Oh shit! I know. I used to know his name because he's like one of my favorite. He's another one of my favorite actors. I definitely put Edward Furlong and Clancy Brown up as some of my favorite actors, but this guy too. I just can't fucking remember his name. I don't know, but he looks like that guy. He's got like slicked back hair and these cross earrings and like a fucking scarf on and a black trench coat looking jacket. He's like the bully, but in goth form. He's got a couple lackeys with him, and I guess when Edward's character and his dad opened up when they were fixing up the vet shop or whatever, they went to the back room and there was like a box of kittens back there, and there were like 5 of them. So I guess Edward decided to keep one of these, and he takes it to school the next day. And I guess the fat kid was like toting around with the bully, but eventually the fat kid starts toting around with Edward. So he brings this cat to school, and after all the shit happens, like school happens in general, the bullies follow him, and then they snatch the cat from him, and actually a pretty well shot scene. I enjoyed this. I didn't mind that they had a bunch of kids mess around. I mean, I didn't mind that they strayed away from the Pet Cemetery plot till like 40 minutes into this movie. I honestly didn't mind. I enjoyed this movie 100%. I know a lot of people would be like, well, this movie just sucks. I've heard a lot of people say this movie sucked. And when I told them I was eventually going to have to watch it because when I told one of my friends I was eventually going to have to watch this because of one of the reviews, they told me, oh, that movie sucks. And I'm like, after I watched it, I was like, I enjoyed every minute of that movie except for the last 10 minutes. I mean, that was a good ass movie. I legitimately enjoyed this. Even though there is a dead woman with a wolf, well, oh, we'll get to the dead wolf head woman fucking the dad in a later scene. That was interesting, and I didn't even mind that. Like, this movie had a little artsy feel to it. It was kind of experimental to me. I believe they were trying to experiment with something here because I don't believe this was an actual Stephen King book. I don't believe he made a Pet Cemetery 2 ever. But, I'm just thinking I got this movie because after this, I'm going to start the 11 Children of the Corn movies. Oh, that's going to be a nightmare. There are 11 Children of the Corn movies. And in my opinion, none of the Children of the Corn movies are any good. I don't even like the original. I find them all to be very boring. And fucking Sarah Connor is in the original Sarah Connor is in the first Children of the Corn. I find none of them to be entertaining. They're all shitty, and I cannot wait to just blow through them, but I'm not going to because that's at least 16 hours of footage. 11 movies, 16 hours of footage. Yeah. Great. Oh, I still got to get through Pet Sematary 2 and the remake, though. Yeah, guys, we're going to be reviewing Stephen King movies for a very long time. Just sit back and relax. Okay, Pet Sematary 2. So, well, we already got through the Carrie movies. There was 4 of those. So we're doing good. We got through the Salem's Lot stuff. So we're on Pet Sematary now. So I think the next scene was so they got this cat and Edward's character chases after him. They're having like this bike race. And they eventually pass this house with a mailbox that says Creed, but the house has got like vines all over it, and it's the Creed house from the first movie, which is a cool little nod, I guess. I hate the original one so much, and I hate the remake. I don't know why I don't like it. The original one is just too weird for me. It's a stupid movie. It really is. And the remake does it even more bad justice. It's just terrible. Um, so they Edward eventually meets up with these kids, and they get in a fight. The main bully with the cross earrings, tells him that he killed the cat or whatever, and he buried it in the pet cemetery. But we all know that he didn't have enough time to do that, so they get in a fight. Ultimately, the bully wins, but Edward. That's what I like about Edward's character. He portrays this kid that lets these bullies beat on him, but he doesn't let his emotions show. He doesn't give the bully any satisfaction, which is honestly something I think kids these days need to learn in school. They may beat you up once in a while, but honestly, if you don't give them any emotion or run away or say you're scared of them or something, or let them know that you're scared, just stand your ground and tell them, hey, you honestly don't care. I think that adds for a great character trait. I honestly think that's a really cool part of this character because you don't really see that a lot. I'm not going to poke fun at teen depression or anything, but I just really related with this character a lot because I went through that at one point, and his character in this, was very entertaining and feel good to watch. I legitimately enjoyed his character in this because it was the polar opposite for me. That was a long time ago, of course, but that was because I just graduated about 4 months ago, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago that I was in public school. I went to a private school after that, but I really enjoyed watching this character because I feel like that's what a lot of kids lack and what have been lacking for a while. That's why I've always liked the characters that he plays, because more or less when he first started his career, he first got his big break, which was in the 90s with American History X, 1990. American History X came out, Pet Cemetery 2, he got Terminator 2. He banked a lot of roles in this age. And you know what? It wasn't a bad thing. He did a good job in all of them. He pretty much played the same character, this rebellious, doesn't give a shit character. And he's a cool character, and I could definitely follow behind this kid. But of course, this was 1991. So, this came out in 1992, a year after Terminator 2 was released. And I'm actually surprised he got 2 really good roles in a span of 2 years. Not to mention, he also got the role of fucking the little brother in American History X. I will always go back to American History X because that is literally one of my favorite movies of all time. And now that I'm thinking of it, I'm going to give American History X his best role. I think American History X is his best role, but this would come as a third next to Terminator 2. So continuing the movie, this confrontation happens, and the fat kid, the sheriff's kid, Clancy's kid, is with the bullies, and the bullies leave, and Edward's character goes back to the pet cemetery to find his cat in this bird cage on one of the graves. Gets his cat out, and then the sheriff's kid pops up behind him, and they instantly become friends there. And it's a cool little scene. So then we cut to the next part, which is we get to meet, we get to see the fat kid's home life with his dad. His dad likes to keep a bunch of rabbits around, and I don't know why. He's got these cages of rabbits, and I guess he charges $10 a piece for them. I don't know why. But his dad is very sexually abusive to his mom, and he just fucking hates this kid in general. And he also doesn't let the fat kid eat because he thinks he's too fat. And actually, there was a line in this that made me laugh a little bit. So the dad's like, the dad sees that his kid is taking a little bit too much food from the dinner or whatever. And he's like, how much? What if I told you need to limit your portions because you're getting chubby? And then the kid replies with this. I was laughing at this. I thought that was really funny. He's like, sorry, I'm not a stud like you. Because I thought that was funny. I don't know about you, but I don't know about you guys, but I legitimately thought that was funny. But, yeah, okay, so skipping to later that night, Sheriff Boy Clancy and his wife get the bang on, and then when they're banging, they hear the dog barking outside, and the dad gets real pissy, so he gets his rifle and fucking gets outside and shoots this dog in front of his son. And then the son goes out to find the dog. He finds it bleeding out against the tree. Well, the reason that he did that is because the dog was barking too much and it pissed him off. So he fucking goes out and shoots this thing, and the kid lies next to his dying dog all night, and then at like dusk in the morning, he goes to get Edward's character and brings him up to this pet cemetery because we're past the point where we got the backstory of the pet cemetery. And they bury this dog in the pet cemetery. And next thing you know, it's midnight the next night. I mean, it's like 6 o'clock the next day, 6 o'clock at night. And the dad finds his kid walking on the road, and he offers him a ride. He's like, where have you been? And he's like, I've been burying my dog. So he takes him home, and guess what? The dog shows up that night, and the dad gets all pissed because he thinks he lied. Nope, this dog is fucking dead, and he's weird. And this was one of the parts that didn't make sense. The dog comes in with like, well, actually, now that I think of it, it does make sense. So the dog comes in with like a bunch of bleeding. His leg is still bleeding. And then the mom says, oh, we need to take him to the vet. So they take him up to the vet, and he lets the dog stay over there overnight. And so Edward's character and the fat kid, before they go home for the night, it's like 8 o'clock now. Before they go home for the night, they lock the dog up in the back part with the remaining 4 kittens. And so they end up leaving for the night, and the veterinarian, Edward's dad, ends up taking a blood sample from the dog and sending it to a university professor or whatever that can like test blood or whatever. Who fucking cares? He's a side character. Nobody cares. So the doctor gets the test results back, and apparently the animal blood that he sent him has been dead. Dun dun dun, the dog's fucking dead. Nobody's surprised. I mean, it's not a really big surprise. It's a pet cemetery. So then this woman and her 2 little girls pop in the vet door, and they're looking to buy one of those 4 stray cats. And the doctor lets them go back there and pick which one they want. They go back there, and there's a scream from the back room. The doctor goes back there, and the 2 little girls and the mother run away. And guess what? The dog cage is ripped open, bars pried open, and there is a shredded box full of cat insides. Yeah, they literally went there. So, moving on, the dad goes to see this, the previous owner of the vet office, because the guy at the university said that he had a similar case from the previous owner where he had dead dog DNA. Or dead animal DNA. And I will give you a spoiler just ahead of time to explain which animal it was. It was Church the cat from the original Pet Cemetery. So moving on. So then we get, it's like a Halloween night or something. I'm skipping around here. That's what I normally do with these movies, but it's like Halloween night. And the fat kid is like grounded now since the dad got all pissy that he lied about burying his dog. Well, he didn't lie. The dog just came back as a zombie. And now the dog is fucking missing. And he's grounded, but his mom lets him go out and trick or treat. And the dad is gone for the day, so he won't find out. So his mom's like siding with the kid. So the dad comes home early and he finds out the kid's gone, so he decides to go looking for him in the pet cemetery. And when he meets up in the pet cemetery, Edward, the fat kid, and a bunch of other kids from school are like hanging out there. All the other kids dissipate. And the sheriff tells Edward to move along and run along or whatever. And he's beating the ever-living shit out of this kid with a pet grave. Yeah, he picked up a pet grave out of the ground and he's starting to beat his kid with it. So what happens is the fat kid's dog ends up coming out of nowhere and pouncing on Clancy's character and ripping his throat out. Yes, Clancy's character is dead, but that is not the last time that we will see him sort of alive. So what happens next? They don't really show it, but I guess they ended up burying his dad's body, the fat kid's dad's body, Clancy, in the pet cemetery, and he comes back. But there's an interesting turn on this one. He seems to have somewhat intelligence, and he seems to be not a douchebag now, but now he's fucking crazy. So they kept some ideas from the original, but they could put a nice little twist on it that I much more appreciated, and it sank down a lot better than the original plot of Pet Sematary. I think the original plot of Pet Sematary 1 and the remake are just stupid. I really think they're stupid. And I know this is kind of harsh saying that because there's like a suicide in the original and there's also a death of a kid, but I personally think the original is stupid. This one is much more well organized up until the ending. The ending wasn't that good, but I still really enjoyed this movie. So, continuing, the next part that we get to is the kid goes home and the mom's wondering why her husband didn't come home. He comes home that night and he puts this like bandage around his neck and then he sexually assaults his wife like really hardcore, like ripping her shirt apart and like going fucking Tarzan on her. And then the next morning we get this funny little conversation between Edward and the fat kid saying like, Dad just comes home to breakfast and he actually likes me. So apparently his attitude has completely changed. So Edward ends up spending the night at the fat kid's house that night. And when he gets there, the dad is skinning all of his rabbits alive. So he is literally taking the skin off of the rabbits. It is nasty as fuck. He's snapping these fucking rabbits' necks and then skinning them. And then hanging them on the cage. It's pretty fucking nasty, honestly, because you literally get to see a scene where he goes, snap, and then he just starts getting a Bowie knife and fucking carving the skin off this thing, and it's just like, oh, he's got a couple screws loose. And then we get the dinner scene where Edward's eating dinner with the fat kid's family. I'm just going to call him the fat kid. I don't even care. And we get this scene where the sheriff is playing with his food and letting it drip out of his mouth and stuff. It's really gross. So, yeah, then what happens next? The next day, I guess Edward and the fat kid are riding bikes, and they decide to part ways. So Edward goes forward, and Fat Kid goes the other way, and then the bully shows up with his fucking motorcycle. And he's chasing after Edward's character because he's a bully. So the Fat Kid turns around and rides after them. And the bully catches up to him and rams Edward off the road, and then he catches up with Edward riding down to the off side of the road. So there's like a hill that drops down. And the bully decides to start spinning the wheel of not his motorcycle, but the bicycle that Edward has, and he's about to chop Edward's nose off with his wheel. But then the sheriff shows up and decides to let Edward run along. So he runs along, and then the bully's like, I was just fucking with him. And then we get an actually pretty brutal kill for this movie. I've seen it happen in TV shows before, like Gotham. Gotham did a kill like this. It's not the first one to do a kill like this, but it's always fun to see it because it is a really cool kill to have in a movie. And it's not really common either. It has happened before, but it's not common. But he takes the bully's motorcycle and shreds the inside of his chest with it, the tire. He revs it up and then shreds his chest with it. It's like a dirt bike or something. So the bully's dead, and then he takes this fucking bully and takes it up to the pet cemetery and buries him. So now we have the sheriff zombie walking around and the sheriff and the bully zombie. So then next thing to happen is the next thing, he's trying to bury this bully's body. Well, when he's taking the bully's body away, he sees that his son saw him doing it because the son shows up now, the Fat Kid. So he decides to run away, and the dad gets in his cop car. The son gets home. There's a whole chase scene there, and eventually the Fat Kid runs into his mom. They drive off, but then the dad chases him with the cop car, and actually, to my surprise, what happens is the cop car rams the mother and the Fat Kid's, rams his wife's and kid's car into this oncoming like potato transport truck. And the scene ends with them being crushed by all these potatoes. So yes, they do end up getting killed in the scene by the car wreck and by the mangled car and all the potatoes falling on top of them. It was actually a pretty shocking death. I didn't think that they'd end up killing them. So, moving on. Next thing. Oh yeah, we're looking at the next thing. So then we get another confrontation scene. Where so I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it. What happens is Edward's character ends up teaming up with the sheriff. Now the bully is nowhere to be found until the last act of the movie, which is the last 10 minutes. But he teams up with the sheriff to resurrect his mother's corpse. We'll figure that out later. But for now, we're getting this scene where his dad is oh god damn it, what was his dad doing? His dad's going to the sheriff's house to kill, because he didn't bring his wife and kid back. He's going to the sheriff's house to kill the dog and the sheriff. But when he gets in the house, the dog has been drilled to death. Yes, the dog is finally laying dead on the floor with a bunch of drills in his neck. Whatever. So, what happens next is oh god damn it! What happens next is since his dog's dead, there's like this big old fight, and the scene ends with the dad managing to pull out a gun and blow the sheriff's head off. So it does end with Clancy's character officially dying for the movie. So Clancy is in it for most of the movie. Oh yeah, the scene also ends with the dog getting Clancy gets off like one hit in his shoulder, and it like opens up a wound, whatever. So he gets home, and before he gets home, what happens is, so the housekeeper, he fell in love, the dad, I think he had like fell in love with her a little bit, but he asked the housekeeper to keep an eye on Edward and not let him leave the attic, because Edward was holed up in the attic waiting for his mom, because he knew that the sheriff had buried her in the Indian burial ground. But now the sheriff's dead and the dog is too. Now we got a zombie mom and a zombie bully walking around. So what happens next is yeah. Oh, the housekeeper falls asleep, and then the housekeeper wakes up to find that Edward's not there. But she goes up in the attic and finds the ever so mesmerizing dress of the dead mom. She picks up the dress and puts it on, and puts on a bunch of makeup to make herself look like the actress. But then the zombie actress pops up, and she looks perfectly normal, except for maybe like a burn wound on her face. And she comes up behind her and breaks this mirror, and then takes a shard of this mirror, and to another surprise of this movie, actually kills this housekeeper. So another shocking death for me. The housekeeper actually gets killed. So now we got the housekeeper dead, and the dad comes home to find that the housekeeper is dead in the attic, and the dead mom is now comforting Edward's character on the bed, and Edward is very happy now that the dead mom is back. But we eventually get another confrontation here, and eventually the kid decides, yeah, she's dead. There's no way that she's come back, because the mom is like all nasty and grimy and stuff. So there's this big old battle. And the reason that he decided to do that is because there was this big old battle with the bully. So apparently the mom had teamed up with the bully to kill the dad and the son, because I think she wanted to like put them in the pet cemetery. So it's gross. Ooh. Anyway, so yeah, the bully ends up getting killed at the end of this fight by a electrical power cord from the attic stabbed into his head, so he dies. And then the they end up setting up a fire in the house by knocking over some candles, and the dad decided to get out of there with the son, and the zombie mom ends up burning alive in the house, and the dad and the son get away. And the movie ends with a pan out shot of the area. They're driving away from the town, and it's a pan out shot, and it goes to the pet cemetery. But there's a little narration saying it was the conversation from earlier of the fat kid and Edward's character saying, "Do you think people ever get over?" The fat kid says, "Do you think I'll ever get over death?" And then Edward is like, "No, you never will." I mean, he says something like, the fat kid says something like, "Do you think people ever get over it?" And then Edward says something like, "No, it never leaves. Never totally leaves," or something like that. It was a really cool scene. So, getting to the rating. What would I rate Pet Cemetery to? I'm not going to give it an A+, because it's a good movie, but come on, it doesn't deserve an A+. I don't think I'm going to give it an A either. It was good for me, but I don't think I'm going to give it an A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a B. I think it deserves a B. It doesn't deserve to be a C, not at all. It's not a meh movie. It was good. It was pretty good. I'm just going to say it was pretty good. So, because how I rate it, A+ is the best of the best. Cream of the crop. A is really good, but not good enough to be an A+. B is still really good. C is meh. B is bad, and F is fucking terrible, and I also got a guilty pleasures category. That's a special category for movies like Doom and the Resident Evil movies, which I do like. Don't piss on those. I also like Jason X. So, yeah, I'm going to give this movie a B. I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of other people don't enjoy it, but I really thought it was a little hidden gem among Stephen King's adapted movies. So remember to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.